Di Foster.
Hello.
Welcome back to Business in Between.
And me, I'm here too.
Oh. You never introduced me on the podcast.
Yeah, true. Shoe is on the other foot.
Yeah, you really don't like. You really don't. You really do not like the Shay leading the ship situation. This is nice. That's interesting. Have you made a note of that on your remarkable? I can't read from here.
Issues.
Yeah,
control issues.
Letting go.
You're doing great, man.
If you are just tuning in, this is episode 3 of our Accidental Business Owner's Journey. It's like a live coaching with Di Foster, super coach, business coach,
today.
life coach.
We've got shit to talk about.
We do. To recap, episode 1, we established that Stephen and I are accidental business owners. So we have stumbled upon where we are now with multiple income streams and trying to tie it all together. Episode 2, we spoke about sharpening the axe, which is how we've got to here and the mahi that went on behind the scenes. I love the term that you used about like overnight success that started 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So we started 5 years ago on our podcast journey. I think this is kind of quite a pivotal episode because this is really where we are right now, bringing us up to speed with, we've got the podcast humming, we've got the speaking business on the side, we've started reflections. We're really dialing in on the storytelling element of what we do.
And this is the business end of
and commercializing it.
Exactly. And this is the business end of that sort of, you've been spending 8 hours sharpening your axe and it's like we're chopping the tree down, and that's where, I've been fortunate enough to come on your journey and we're looking at commercializing it and making sure it makes sense. And one of the reasons I think that you engage with me is kind of like what's obvious that we're missing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the accidental part is key to it.
Yeah.
Lots. And the answer to that is lots.
and I think full disclosure, like this is an interesting dynamic for us as two people, as we spoke about with sharpening the axe, that research the hell out of what we're going to talk about, how we're going to approach it. We've come into today quite guardrails down, really kind of flying by the seat of our pants. So, yeah. Are you feeling a little bit uneasy about this dynamic?
Not uneasy. I'm looking forward to.
So lying.
No, stop it, you two. I just want to know what Di's going to ask us.
Yes.
Wait, they're so good, eh? Like because you guys are so good at researching and so good of knowing the angle and what's going to happen and where you're going to take it. And I literally do the complete opposite. I mean, I say I do, but I have a lot of frameworks and things going on in the back of my head. But I am totally, people go, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. We'll figure it out as we go.
But you do know?
Well, I would say that one of the things that I try and do is, one of the things that I do is I'm exceptionally present. So when we have this conversation, like I could have told you exactly where it's going to go, but actually because I'm present, who knows?
Well, to preface where we might end up going, on your Monday motivation that you sent a couple of weeks ago, what do we really want was the working title for what this episode would be.
Yeah.
So what do we really want?
Well, that's the title because you, Seamus, have not answered that.
I wondered whether that would come up.
Because 4 months ago, I said to you,
Get him.
what do you really want?
Shoes on the other foot now, isn't it? I wondered about, and Stephen has also said, you've not done your homework, and I made some story up about why I haven't done my homework. I don't really know what I want.
Bullshit,
bro.
I just want to get to do the things that I enjoy doing and get some money out of them.
Yeah, you're answering that question, though, from a strictly business point of view.
Oh, no.
Okay, fair call.
I like travel.
Okay, yeah.
And I get to do that now. Yeah. Some people say that I travel too much, but I like doing it and I want to do it. I like spending time with my family, and I get to do a lot of that. I like football and I get to do parts of that, but it's still weirdly tethered to my professional identity. But the part that I really enjoy about football, which is interesting, is I would just like to be back at Melville in the dressing room on a weekend as part of our little Northern League team.
Yeah.
And it's a real conflict of, is that the best use of my time?
Yes.
And I think it is because it brings me so much joy.
Yes.
But I often get worried about what the outside perception is of like, why is this guy picking up like 17-year-old guys' dirty socks and like telling them to like turn their shirts in the right way.
Why are you doing that?
I like to feel like I'm having a positive influence on a young mind. So that's
because you like that way of that's how it feels for you.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I like if I use the Melville example, like I did kind of first team stuff with, or like football stuff with them for like 5 years. So you see a kid from 14, 15 through to like early 20s, and it's quite not having kids of my own, like that's quite a nice influence that you can have in their lives.
Yeah.
Like an external space to what they're parenting or their home life situation or their friend life situation is like, I really like that environment. So I think football's a vehicle for connection with people.
100%. And we know that if kids are going to go off the rails, it's around that age. And we also know that the most important thing to stop them going off the rails is a relationship with an adult that is outside of their parents.
Yeah. So I really like that part.
Yeah, I love that.
But I don't do that much anymore.
Yeah. And I think that's really interesting because the thing that came into my mind is that, you know, if you double down on the work that you do and you create space in your life, then you get to do and that rather than, or, you know, it's like, oh, if we double down on the work over here, I won't have time for that. But actually, if you double down on this work and it's commercially viable and you're taking care of the things that you need to take care of, then you create time and space for that and. Yeah. Which I think is super important.
And that's really interesting that you say and, because we've spoken about this as well, but I went and did a weekend with David Galbraith, DG, one of our former guests, who talks about full stops. And like the way to get better at something is that I am a
full stop.
Whatever, full stop. Not I am a this and this and this and this.
And he is absolutely right. And we live in a world where there are very few people that are satisfied by full stops.
Yeah.
So, you know, we can all go and double down on our work, but most of us do that because we want to do it for our family and have travel with our family or do things with our family. And we are parents or we are aunties and uncles and we want to have an influence on the team and, you know, so very few of us are in isolation. You know, even if I think of like David Beckham, who was very singular when he was playing, he still had enough space to have that, and Victoria is incredibly important to his balance and who he is as a person.
Yeah.
So I understand if you want to get good at something, that full stop is really important, and life is not a full stop.
Yeah. And some of us are really good at heaps of things.
Yeah, and there's an age, stage and phase thing. You know, one thing I think, given that I was born in the 1970s, is that, you know, as women we were told that we could have whatever we wanted or do whatever we wanted. We just weren't told that we couldn't necessarily do it all at once. And I think that is a huge issue for us as a society now, you know, whether we are parents, mother or father, in terms that, you know, we sometimes have to give up part of our identity or part of our career identity for a little while until our children are of a certain age, and then we can go, yep, we're back into it now. You know, so it's like there's such an age, stage and phase thing.
I'm just going to keep hogging this for a little bit, Steve, because this is like a live...
Don't worry, I'm going to get to him in a minute.
He's thinking about what to say.
He's thinking, what did I put in my homework?
Yeah, well, that was... And I think... For a lot of my life, you talk about age, stage, and phase, I've just lived day to day. I've woken up in the morning and been like, what am I going to do today? I'm going to do this. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's not serving me that well anymore.
I think that an accumulation of that way of living has a price. Right. And I think that you know, we've talked about this. There's some work that we're going to do around that to catch you back up with that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise the price is too high.
Yeah. So I think when you ask me that question, what do you really want? When I say I don't know, I kind of don't know, but I have a vague idea of the sorts of things I want. So like that 10,000 days lens.
Yeah.
Like where do you want to be in 10,000 days?
So that's 27 years. And kind of I think that as, when I'm on my porch and I'm looking back at my life, what will have been important? Because I believe in that moment there is a number of ands. There's a number of things in that moment. One, I'm here. Two, I've got great relationships with my children and my partner and my family, so I haven't been an asshole and fallen out with every Tom, Dick and Harry. And, so there's a number of things. And, what parts of the world would I have liked to have seen, or who am I as a person? And then we start there with our greater vision across our life. And then we drill it down to, well, what's the next step is, what do I need to do in the next 1,000 days? Which is, given where I am now, given the age and stage and phase that I'm in now, what am I doubling down on for 3 years?
It's interesting, eh? Like, I think about, if that's 27 years, like when I was 15, I would have not thought I would be doing, maybe football would have been a constant. Yeah. Interesting. Do Steve.
Steve.
Oh, here we go.
You were very diligent and did your homework. Yep. And one thing that I'd have to say when I read it is I thought, there we go, all the right answers.
Common theme.
Common theme. Do you remember what you put?
No, I don't.
Yeah. Good answer. It was around, financial aspects of the business, and it was also around, family.
Yep.
Oh, and you and me flying around the world telling our story. That was in there?
Yep. You read mine?
Yeah. Yeah, well, you sent it to me.
Yeah, you shared it with the group.
Okay, yeah, all right.
There's no singular conversations here. There's a group conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds familiar.
So, I wonder sometimes, given the age, stage and phase that you're at, what feels really important to you now? What's your, what's your ands?
I think my ands are easier to state than what becomes before it. So the and is, and you mentioned it there, and I like the wording because I was going to say time with my family, but it's having really good relationships with my kids and my wife is my and.
Yeah.
And that's probably more powerful and important than the part that comes before it, which is really important. So, yeah, it's weird. Why am I getting emotional talking about this?
Why do you
Wasn't expecting this from a business podcast. I'm trying to work out why I'm getting emotional, and I think it's because it's really important to me to build this business and have something that we've created and put so much time into with such big potential. But the end part is as the workload increases, it's taking me further away from my family.
Yep.
And I'm trying to chart a path out of that so that's more in balance.
Yep.
Fuck, where'd that come from?
But that's, I don't know, that's like a breakthrough for me to hear. Because I think sometimes the front that you present is like, man, everything's all good. We've got this, everything's all good. But there's fucking life that goes on outside of the stuff that we do here. And you've got, I get it, man. You've got to manage it. That's way more important than anything else, I think, that we do in a professional context, is to make sure that those relationships are real solid.
It is, but because we've gone out and done it, which has been amazing, it's like I need to drive it to make it work to support the family. And we've got this dynamic where we've had our fourth kid. Bond's been on maternity leave for a year, and it's like, well, we're at the time where she's ready to go back to work. But because our schedule is all over the place and we've got podcast recordings and we're flying around the country to do keynotes, and there's the stuff where the money is coming in and it makes more sense for me to work, and she's not necessarily doesn't want to go back to work if she doesn't have to, then it has to work. Otherwise it all falls apart.
Yeah, and I want to take out that it doesn't have to work, because that's too much pressure. And so I know that it has to work and it doesn't have to work. And what I mean by that is, you're feeling the pressure at the moment because, I think you're feeling the pressure because this matters to you.
Yeah.
And I think that if 5 years ago you had sat down and said, we need to work out our why, because it needs to be the centre point of everything we do, I'm not sure you would have got to this place where you really do know your why. And I think that there's an added, you said that this has to work because it has to support your family, but also you take on the responsibility for you both.
Yes.
So it's not just, I need to generate enough money to support my family. I need to generate enough money that it supports both Seamus and I.
That's a really important part of it. The plan we drew up took a huge leap of faith from Shay in that basically until now, like literally until 2 days ago, 4.5 years into this, he hasn't taken any money. Well, there's been a few bits and pieces, but
I've taken stuff you don't know. Don't you worry about that. Don't you worry about that.
But the plan was from January when I went full time that I would be driving it to get it to the place where we can pull him up full time, and there was no guarantee that was going to work. And without having this exact conversation with Shay, I can imagine there were times when he thought there's a good chance it doesn't, and that is his character. He gives and gives and gives and is happy to do that. But I felt a real responsibility to make it work. And so when we got that big sponsorship deal come through, when a lot of the stuff has been working out, it really filled me with a great sort of sense of fulfillment.
I get now why you, when I'm so miserable about things all the time, why that pisses you off. It makes sense. We should probably talk more.
I sit there with my popcorn going, this is really interesting. These guys spend so much time together. They don't actually talk to each other.
This is such a theme with my relationships, because Doc Brown says it as well about me and my brother, or me and my family in general. You guys love each other so much. You would do absolutely anything for each other, but you can't ask each other how you're doing and get a real answer from it. It's just such a weird dynamic. It's we should talk more, because I can sense it. I can sense the stress when it's building, what's happening, what's bubbling away behind the surface. But for some reason, don't push.
And you go into your little shell, Seamus, and you go, I'll just keep doing this thing over here to take the pressure off Steve, but I just won't tell him that that's why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And then Steve's going, geez, he doesn't believe that I'm actually going to be able to make this happen. And he's just thinking, why is he dragging the chain a bit? It's like, oh, boys, you're so cute.
It's like the contract thing. That's why. Yeah. That's why, because there is part of me that goes, oh, man, what if it doesn't work? Which I'm fine in principle with, because I think, I'll be okay. And as long as we can still not let anything slip, but spinning the plates is becoming harder and harder and harder at the moment. When you were saying flying, doing keynotes, and we're doing this and we're doing this, I was thinking as you're talking, we really need to kind of laser focus on just a couple of things to really nail those so that they're commercially viable, building resilience into the business, particularly financially.
Yeah, and that's true, and we'll be talking about that this afternoon. That is true. And I would say that you are at the point where once we take care of a couple of little points around building some resilience in, then we stop the language and just go, this is working.
Yeah.
This is amazing. And let's double down.
Yeah.
Because that's at the place that you are.
Yeah.
It is. I talked to Bon about how much time we spend talking to our accountant. She's like, fuck, you're talking to your accountant all the time. I'm like, yeah.
More than you talk to me.
There's a lot going on. So we had 90 minutes with him yesterday. Matty Hinton, by the way, is amazing. He's been such a big help to us, equally as you have.
He's a legend.
But I feel like yesterday's session with him really locked in with both of us on the call, 90 minutes, and it's really firm. These are the numbers not projected, but this is what's locked in to the end of the year. And that's been the difference is it's kind of been hypothetical. Well, this is what we're expecting, but here we've got some real, I don't know, some solid foundation.
Rock solid numbers. Yeah. That's what you said, rock solid numbers.
Well, there's such a difference between cemented and potential and, predictions. There's a huge difference. When you've got some cemented in, then you can do it quite differently. But coming back, because I know you're trying to get off topic, so nice try. Yeah. So, it is really key to talk about what you actually want, like both in a business sense, and because you guys have a business partnership, it does take a little bit longer to kind of go through the journey with both of you to think about what it is that you want personally and as shareholders and as directors and all that sort of stuff. It's like, come on guys, what do you actually really want? Because once we start at that, what do you want, then we work back, because there's some pitfalls in there. People can very flippantly say, I want this, but it's like, well, are you prepared to do the work? And are you prepared to look at the story that you've been telling yourself as to why you haven't done it already? So, that factor around really drilling down into what you want is incredibly important. And it's really important. Well, you could do it strictly from a business perspective and go, look at that, that's done. But then what I think I find with a lot of clients, and I know definitely with myself, is you have to look outside of that, because quite often there's a conflict in what else do you want in your life. So that's why I think the and is really important, because, you can say something with a full stop, but unless you're aware of those inherent things that are inside of you that bring you tears because your family matter to you that much, then, I could say to you, hey, look, you could double down and do twice as much as you're doing, but you just never see your family for, 5 years. Are you good with that? And clearly the answer is no. But some people would do that. Some people would be fine with that. Some people are okay with being away from their family that much. And that's not right or wrong. It's totally dependent on you as a person. The
age, stage and phase thing is so interesting, eh? I think I reflect back on 20s me flying all over the world, doing football stuff, a month here, a week there. And I loved it. I couldn't think of anything worse now. But I do enjoy the travel.
Yeah.
But I don't want the ball ache of having to run a thing and is the bus on time and if they've got their visas and all that shit. I'd rather just fly somewhere, talk into a microphone about what's happening in front, and then in my own weird way kind of influence the narrative about what people think about Oceania football as my kind of vehicle of being like, well, no, it's not. Yes, it's developing and it's this and it's this. And it's a little bit that whole the kids in the Melville dressing room, as well as it's like the audience of trying to, I don't know, shape perspective.
Yeah.
Which is what we do through the podcast as well. So it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I want.
Maybe.
Perspective shaper.
Don't let that throw you, Stu. Here you go.
No, I think the biggest change for me across the last couple of months has been the value I've put on my time. As I've got busier, and I know how important it is to spend time with family, I'm hyper aware of when I'm doing something which isn't serving any of my goals or objectives. Whereas, I don't know, as recently as 6 months ago, I would be working 8 hours for the Herald and doing a shift, and I might get the majority of my work done in 2 or 3. And I'll just sort of be hanging out and I can surf in the web and, I might go for a coffee or something, but now it's like if someone wants to meet up for a coffee, I'm like, fuck, it's a pretty busy week. There better be a real, a real good reason for that. And it doesn't have to be business related. I know friendships are important in maintaining those, but the value of my time, and it came into clarity last weekend. I was away at a friend's 40th. Good friend, and it's really important to do that in 40th these occasions. But it was 2 days away, and it was great. It was 2 days of golf, and there was drinks, but it was 2 days away.
And it was on top of 2 days away for work, 3 days away for work.
And I missed my kids' football in the morning, which is my favourite part of the week. And I was like, man, my time is so valuable now. I'm just really wary of where I put it.
That is so good though, because the last thing we want is in 10,000 days to have regret. the whole point that we look at our vision and really drill down into what it is that we want is because the very thing that I think essentially that we're all wanting to avoid is on our deathbed having regret. And that doesn't mean that for everyone they want to go and support their kids playing, football. That's not for everybody. But if that's important to you, then that needs to be, that's really important.
Yeah.
And it's good to know that, because otherwise you make shitty decisions and then you have regret.
That's a nice teaser for the next episode, I reckon. What are the stories that we're telling ourselves as to why we haven't done the things that we want to do?
It's funny, like a business. We've got this business in between in the suits and stuff, and I'm thinking this is going to be a bit different, and then I start crying at one of the questions.
But that's the reality of business, right? I'm sure there's a lot of people out there listening that are business owners and people that have done stuff that have been in that same position, that have been, how do I make this work? Full power to you for acknowledging it. I couldn't think of the word.
I
didn't want to. That was it.
Thank you so much, Steve, for being vulnerable and showing that to our guests. We really appreciate you opening up in that way. And
fucking that's a good way to end.
Yeah.
What's your outro, Shay?
Look, I hope you've enjoyed the latest episode of Accidental Business Owners. You can find this on our Business in Between channel. On iHeartRadio.
Give it a follow.
You can watch the episode on YouTube and follow Di Foster at diefoster.com.
Nice.
We'll catch you next time.